Hello, my name is Brian Kinney, and I'm a Striven ERP advisor, and welcome to our accounting lesson where we will be discussing accounts payable. Topics today will include AP settings, payment terms, bill creation, received items, and bill credits. So with that, let's get started. Now before we get too involved in creating and managing accounts payable transactions, let's first go to our company settings, where we can explore how we can configure our accounts payable to fit our company's needs. To achieve that, let's click the Company tab and choose Settings from the drop-down. Once in the Settings, click the Accounting section, followed by AP and Settings from underneath. This will bring you to the AP Settings page, and here we can set up the basic information about how our accounts payable functions in our system. The top choice is for purchase orders, and here we can set our default payment terms for our purchase orders in Striven. We can choose from the drop-down for any payment term that we already have. We also have a plus tool, which will help us create new payment terms right from here. Next we have checks, and here we can decide whether or not we want to warn about duplicate check numbers in our system. If we do not want a warning to appear to notify users that a check number already exists inside of Striven, we can uncheck that box. If we do want that warning to pop up for users, we can keep the box checked on. Next is bills, and here we can set a next number for bills. This means when we go to create our next bill, it'll start at this number and work its way forward after that. We can also choose whether or not we want to warn about duplicate bill numbers, and finally set a recipient up for review, so that when bills are entered, this employee gets notified to review them in the transaction review queue. And finally we have the bill credits section. Here we can set the next number for our bill credits and also choose whether or not we want to warn about duplicate bill credit numbers. Once you've configured these AP settings, simply click the Save button, and your Striven system will save all the information so that when you go to add new purchase orders, checks, bills, or bill credits, these settings apply. Next, let's talk about payment terms for your accounts payable. To find payment terms, simply click the Bills section and you'll see payment terms underneath. Here we'll see a list of all of our payment terms. And each payment term has separate columns. The first column is the payment term name. The second is how many days the term lasts. There's also a column where you'll see statuses about whether the payment term is your default payment term or whether or not it has a discount. And finally, the trash can option will allow you to deactivate the payment term from your Striven system. Please note that your default payment term does not have a trash can item, and in order to deactivate that payment term, you must note a different payment term as your default, and then you can deactivate your previous default payment term. To add a new payment term, simply click the Add button at the top of the list. This will initiate a pop-up in which you can enter your term name, enter your term days, decide whether this is your default payment term or not by toggling the box on or off, and finally whether or not you apply a discount to this payment term. If you want to apply a discount, you can toggle the box on. Please note that discounts mainly apply to your vendor payment terms, which you'll see a blue status reminding you of that fact. Here you can enter the percentage for your discount, choose for how many days this discount exists for, choose the account to apply the discount, and then finally choose your class if you're tracking classes in your system. Once you've configured your payment term, simply click the Save button, and you'll see that payment term added to your list. Once the payment term is added, you'll be ready to use it on your accounts payable transactions and purchase orders. Now that we've configured our accounts payable settings and created a new payment term, let's create a bill within the system. There are two ways you can create a bill within Striven. The first way is to click Vendors and choose Bill underneath the Financial section. This will bring you to the Add Bills screen. The other way you can add a bill is to click the Quick Create button with a plus sign and choose Bill underneath the Vendors section. This will bring you to the same exact screen we have in front of us. To begin adding a bill, first choose the vendor and who you're going to pay. Once you've chosen your vendor, the vendor's location will pre-populate in the vendor location field. If you have multiple locations for this vendor, you can click the field and choose the appropriate location from the drop-down. You also have the option to edit the location and add a new location as well. In the vendor field, you have the ability to go to the vendor's information and also add a new vendor right from here if you wish. In the right-hand side of the Add Bill screen, you can choose whether or not you want to receive items, which will put the transaction in the bill pending status. We'll talk a little bit more about this checkbox as we go. Next, you can choose your date for when the transaction has occurred. You can go forward or backward in time as you need. Next, you can choose your payment term. If you remember, in our AP settings, net 30 was our default payment term. Therefore, the bill begins with a net 30 as the payment term. But if you would like to change it, simply click on the field and choose the appropriate payment term from the drop-down. This will automatically change the due date based on the term days you've entered for the term itself. The requested by will always be the user adding the bill, but if you need to change this, simply erase the person's name and choose the appropriate user from the drop-down. If you have more than one accounts payable account, you can also choose the correct accounts payable count from here by erasing the name and choosing which account you'd like to associate. You can also add your own reference number to the bill. This will later become the transaction number. If the reference number is left blank, it'll default to the next number available based on the sequence that we added in the accounts payable settings. We can also add a memo and set as recurring if we want to. If we click Set as Recurring, we can choose whether we want this bill to recur on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis, and each option provides different choices. Down below you have the details about the bill, or what you're purchasing from the vendor. Here you have two tabs. One is the Items tab, and if you click the Select field, you'll be able to choose an item from your items list to add to the bill. If this is an inventory item, you can click the Select hyperlink and choose an inventory location of where the item will be stocked when it's received. You can also choose how much you're buying from the vendor and reference the cost of the item as well. If you're tracking classes, you can also choose the class from the drop-down. If this is something you're going to bill to a customer, simply choose the customer from the drop-down and select the order in which you'd like to bill the expense to. Finally, click the Billable checkbox, and once you click Save, you'll be able to later create a T&E invoice to bill the customer for the expenses. The other tab you have is to the left of the items, and it's called Expenses. By clicking this, you'll see that our options have changed. With the Expenses tab, you can choose an account from your chart of accounts to reference what you're paying for, choose the amount that you've paid for the vendor, and here you can also bill a customer by choosing the same exact workflow. Here you can associate a customer, later an order, and then mark it as billable. You can also choose a class to associate for the line item. Once you're ready, simply click the Save button, and you'll be able to save the bill, and it will go into a to be paid status, noting that we later have to pay the bill to our vendor. Once the transaction is posted, you'll have a number of different buttons at the top, each providing different workflows and options. One is the Actions menu, and from here you can apply a vendor credit, pay the bill, copy the bill, or void the bill. You can add attachments by clicking the Attachments button. File extensions here are listed in the pop-up option, and the max file size per file uploaded is 10 megabytes. We also have an audit log to show you any changes made to the bill. The notes will allow you to capture status updates about the bill. Messages will allow you to message internal or external users. The posting journal will show your debits and credits so that you can make sure that your accounting is working appropriately. You have the History tab, which will show you changes that have taken place with the transaction. And here you'll be able to see the created status and any modifications as well. And there's even a button to return to the bill very easily. And finally, the Related To tab will show you related transactions. This could pertain to purchase orders, bill payments, or bill credits. You can also create bills from purchase orders. To reference that workflow, let's choose the Create tool this time and click Bill underneath the vendors. You can easily create bills from POs by referencing a vendor you know has an open purchase order. By choosing that vendor, a pop-up will appear displaying all the open purchase orders for that particular vendor. To include the purchase order on the bill, simply toggle the box on, and the purchase order will be highlighted in green. Then choose Add Selected Purchase Orders. Down at the bottom, all the items will pull over from the purchase order, and the item names themselves will be grayed out, meaning that they cannot be changed, but you can remove them if you would like. You can, however, change the quantity, the cost, mark it as billable, and select a customer and order if need be. You'll also be able to see statuses about whether this purchase order has been billed yet or not. For instance, here we can see that we ordered 2 items and we've already billed one of them. And down in this line item, we've ordered 4 items and we've previously billed 2. So we have 2 left in this line item and 1 left on this line item. We'll also be able to see in the Related Transactions section, we have the original purchase order and the bill that is referenced in both line items below. If you regularly receive items before you receive the bill from your vendor, you can reference that workflow by toggling on Received Items Bill Pending. This will hide your payment terms and your due date, and only show the date in the top right section of the received items. By scrolling down and clicking Save, you'll be able to save the received items. And you'll note that now the name of the transaction has changed to Receive Items Bill Pending, and you'll see a number after that status. This means that you've received the items into stock, but you haven't been billed by your vendor yet. Once you receive the bill, simply uncheck the box, and you'll note that the payment terms and the due date reappear. Here I can choose the payment terms, which will automatically populate my due date based on the date we have at the top. Once you're ready, click Save, and this transaction will automatically turn into a bill. Now let's talk about bill payments. There are 2 ways to pay off a bill. One is doing it right from the bill itself, and you can do so by clicking the Actions tab and choosing Pay Bill. This will bring you to the Pay Bills queue, in which you'll only see the bill you've selected to pay from. The Pay Bills queue has many different columns, one of which is the transaction, which will list the transaction number. Next is the due date, followed by the vendor, any memo entered on the bill, the total you have to pay for the bill, then the open balance, if your payment term and when you're paying the bill applies with the discount, you'll see the discount column entered here. And if you'd like to, you can click Edit Discount to edit the discount as well. You can also edit how much you're paying by changing the amount in the Pay Amount field. Once you're ready to pay, simply click Pay Bills down below. A pop-up will appear in which you can change the date in which you want to pay the bill, and then choose your method, whether you pay via check or credit card. Once you choose either check or credit card, you'll be asked to change your payment account. So if you'd like this to be something other than the account selected, you can click the field, erase the name of the account, and choose an appropriate account from the drop-down. Once an account is selected, the ending balance will appear below the payment account field. If you selected check, you can also choose whether you want to print this check or not. If you choose to toggle on the box to be printed, the check number box that appears down below will be grayed out and the number will not show. This is because when you go to print the check, you will then be asked to choose an available check number. If you untoggle to be printed, you'll be asked to choose a check number, and one will be provided for you as well. If you'd like to change, you can simply erase and enter any number or alphabetical information, such as ACH or wire, as some examples. You can also enter a memo for the bill payment if you'd like as well. Once you're ready, simply click the green Pay button, and this will create a bill payment for you automatically. To view that bill payment, click the Accounting tab followed by Transactions from the drop-down. Here you'll see a list of all your transactions, but to view the bill payment, simply click on the Type field and only select Checks Bill Payment. Then click Search. At the top of the list, I can see the bill payment I just created, and to view more information, simply click on the transaction number, and you'll be able to see the details of the bill payment. Now let's explore the other way you can pay a bill, which is by using the Pay Bills queue itself. To accomplish this, click the Vendors tab and choose Pay Bills underneath the Financial section. Here we're brought to the Pay Bills queue just like we saw before, but now our search is not filtered for a specific bill. Here we can see anything open in terms of our accounts payable. This could apply to bills or journal entries as we see on the far left. There are several search filters here to help narrow down your results for what you'd like to pay, including the vendor, the due date, the PO number that's related to the bill, a financial class, and here you can choose to sort by either the bill number, the due date, and any of these options below. And you can also sort your direction in ascending or descending order. By scrolling down, you can see everything that you need to pay that is open for your vendors. Here you can choose one transaction at a time, or you can go to the top and click the top checkbox in order to pay off everything all at once. If you selected multiple transactions at once, you can then scroll down to the bottom and click the Pay Bills button. This will initiate the same pop-up we saw before, and in the vendor summary information, you'll see all the vendors separated with the amounts you have to pay each. Here, the same options apply. You can choose your method, choose your payment account, write in a memo, and then click Pay, and this will automatically create transactions just like we saw before. Next, let's talk about bill credits. To create a vendor credit, click the Vendors tab and choose Credit underneath the Financial section. Here you'll be brought to the Add Bill Credit Info. You can also get to this screen by clicking the Create button or the plus sign and choosing Credit underneath Vendors. Here, choose the vendor in which you'd like to associate a credit. Once you've chosen the vendor location will appear in the vendor location field. Once again, if you'd like to choose a different location, simply click the field and choose the appropriate location in the drop-down. You can also click the Edit icon to edit the location or add a new location by clicking the plus icon. On the right-hand side, you can choose the date in which the bill credit has occurred, reference your AP account, and also enter a reference number. Please keep in mind that the reference number will become the new transaction number. You can also add a memo and set up a recurrence if you'd like. Down below you have two options for referencing what is being credited. The first tab is the Expenses tab. Here, just like we saw on the bill, we can reference one of our accounts on our chart of accounts to know what we're being credited for. If we'd like, we can also choose the Items tab and choose an item from our drop-down list. If this is an inventory item, we can click the Select hyperlink and choose the inventory location which we'd like to be credited for. Next, we can associate our cost and the quantity we're being credited, as well as add a description. We can also add our default class if we so choose. Here in the memo field, I'll state the reason why we're being credited. This will let other users of our Striven system know exactly why the credit was issued at a glance on lists like the transaction list. When your bill credit has been configured, simply click the Save button to post the transaction. Here you'll see all the helpful transaction management tools, including the Actions menu where you can apply the credit to open bills, copy the bill credit or void the bill credit. You can also view where the credit was applied, add attachments, see the changes via the audit log, view the posting journal to make sure your debits and credits are acting appropriately, view historical changes using the History tab, and viewing related to information which will show related to transactions. Let's explore applying the credit to an open bill for this vendor. To accomplish this, click the Actions button and choose Apply to Bills from the drop-down. This will initiate a pop-up showing any open bills for the vendor. To apply the bill credit to the bill, simply toggle the box to the left of the bill number, which will highlight the transaction in green. Here you can choose the amount you'd like to apply to the bill, and this could be either a partial or full amount. If you change the amount here, the credit remaining will change based on what you've altered. Once you're ready, simply click the Apply button or Apply and Close to apply the bill credit to the bill. If you chose Save and Close and you would like to see the applied credits, simply click the Applied Credits button. This will show you where the credit was applied, and here you can print for your records and also unapply the credit by toggling the box and choosing Unapply. Now that this transaction is related to a bill, if we click the Related to tab, we'll see that bill within the pop-up. Now that we've created accounts payable transactions, let's look at some reports that you have available for your accounts payable. To view those, click the Reports tab, and underneath the Purchases and Payables section, you'll have a vendor report. Here you can click the Search button to view all the vendors that you've purchased from, and you'll also see how much money you've purchased from each of them. And this will be listed from the vendors you do most business with to the vendors who you do least business with. And will also break down the percentage in which you do business with each vendor. You'll also notice that the vendor name is a hyperlink, and by clicking the vendor name itself, you'll be brought into the vendor information so you can manage information such as their open balance, their billed amount, but also basic information like their contacts, their info, which includes their location, assignments, and much more. The purchasing amount is also a hyperlink for what you've purchased from them in the past. You also have search filters available to filter for a specific period in time, for instance this year, last quarter, or last year. You can also filter to find a custom date range by selecting a from date and a to date using the calendar icon. And if you click the blue down arrow, you can expand search filters to filter for a specific item category or a specific item which you've purchased as well. And if you'd like to export this report, simply click the gray down arrow to the right of the magnifying glass and choose Export Purchasing by Vendor, and this will export into a CSV file. Other reports you have that pertain to vendors are the AP Aging. The AP Aging report will show you all the vendors in which you owe money and the term days in which the open amount has been due for. You can also customize this report by choosing your particular interval days, your bucket days, and you can also filter for a specific vendor. If you choose the blue down arrow, you can filter for a vendor category and a class in which the transactions have been associated to. Within the columns, you also have hyperlinks, one of which is the vendor number and the vendor name, which if you click either of those, you'll be brought into the vendor information like we saw before. You can also click the hyperlink on any of the buckets or the totals to view what you owe the vendor in terms of your individual transactions and a breakdown of the transaction details. And that was a look at how to configure your AP settings, as well as create and manage individual accounts payable transactions ranging from bills, bill credits, and received items, as well as how you can report on your AP financial status within Striven.